I just found out my wife secretly sold our family farm for $600, $0, and hid the money, claiming it was a gift, while she's now suing me for half our divorce settlement. Can't believe I've been betrayed so badly over property and millions in deceit. I never thought I'd be the guy to get like this, but here I am, sitting in my living room after finding out my wife, Lisa, had been cheating on me for months, possibly longer, and somehow in the middle of all that chaos, I also uncovered she'd secretly sold our family farm for $600, $0, and lied about it the entire time. The worst part, she's now trying to claim that the money was a gift, and she's suing me for half of our divorce settlement. It's like everything I thought I knew about her was a lie, and I'm still trying to process how one person can betray you so completely. Lisa and I had been together for almost 10 years. We met in college, got married right after, and for a long time, things seemed solid. We bought the farm when I inherited some land from my grandfather, and it was supposed to be our future, something to pass down to our kids, a symbol of stability. But over the last year, I started noticing changes. She was more distant, secretive even. She'd go out for girls' nights and come back late, always with a story about how she just lost track of time. Little things, texts she'd hide when I entered the room, her phone vibrating more often than usual. I brushed it off as paranoia at first. Maybe she was just stressed with work or the farm. Then about 2 weeks ago, I came home early from work. I was supposed to meet her at a charity dinner, but I decided to swing by the farm first. The driveway was empty, but I saw her car parked outside the barn, something she never did during the day unless she was hiding something. I peeked inside the barn and saw her with a guy I didn't recognize. They were in a tight embrace, and from what I could hear, they were talking about making it work and getting away with everything. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to believe it, but I saw enough to know she was cheating on me. I waited until they left, then I snuck inside the house and started digging through her things. I found texts, flirty, explicit, full of promises to meet up again. I found receipts for hotel rooms she'd booked under her pseudonym. I even found a hidden stash of jewelry she'd bought for her lover, along with some cash she'd taken out of our account. That's when I realized it wasn't just an affair. She'd been planning this all along. What crushed me even more was the fact that she'd been lying about the farm. I thought it was our shared investment, something to secure our future, but it turns out she sold it last year, without telling me, getting $600, $0 in cash and hiding it all. I found bank statements showing the sale, and yes, she claimed it was a gift from her sister. But I talked to her sister, and she said she never gave Lisa any money. I confronted Lisa about it, and her reaction was a barrage of lies, saying she never sold the farm, that I was crazy, that I was overreacting. But the proof was right there, staring me in the face. The worst part, she's now trying to turn everything around, claiming I'm the one at fault, that I'm paranoid, that I don't understand her, that she's doing all this for us and I'm just too blind to see it. She's claiming that the money was a gift from her family, that I have no right to it, and that I should be grateful she's even sticking around after all the stress I've caused. It's a classic manipulation. She's trying to make me feel guilty for discovering the truth, for catching her in the act, but I'm past feeling guilty. I feel betrayed, angry, and honestly pretty lost. I don't even know if I should stay or leave, but one thing's clear. My life has been turned upside down and I'm trying to figure out what to do next. After I found all that stuff, I just sat there in shock. My mind was racing, trying to process how Lisa could do this to me, how she could sell our farm, hide the money, and then lie about it like it was nothing. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and deep sadness. It's one thing to suspect your wife is cheating, but to find concrete proof, and then discover she's been lying about something so huge, about our future, about our money, it's like my world just collapsed. I decided I needed to confront her. I called her that night, trying to keep my voice steady. She answered with that fake sweet tone she always used when she knew she was hiding something. I told her I knew everything, the affair, the sale of the farm, the money. There was silence on the other end, then she started with her usual gaslighting. "You're crazy, Tom. I don't know what you're talking about. You're just paranoid. I love you and I would never do anything to hurt you." But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I had proof, screenshots, bank statements, receipts, and that I wanted to talk face to face. The next day I told her I'd come home early from work. When she saw me walk in, her face went pale. She tried to brush it off, acting like nothing was wrong, but the cracks showed. I pressed her hard. I demanded she explain the sale of the farm, the money, and why she'd lied. That's when she got defensive, snapping at me, saying I was overreacting, that she'd only been trying to do what was best for us, that the farm was just a piece of land, and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. She called me paranoid and jealous, and even accused me of spying on her. I couldn't believe her audacity. I was furious. How could she sit there and lie so blatantly? I told her I was done with the lies, that I wanted the truth, no matter how bad it was. She finally broke down a little, admitted she sold the farm but insisted it was a gift from her sister, something she'd told me was an inheritance. Yet she couldn't produce any proof. She kept twisting everything, saying I was just jealous of her freedom, that I didn't trust her, that I was paranoid because I didn't want her to have her own life. It was the classic gaslighting. I felt like I was losing my mind, trying to hold onto some shred of reality while she was spinning lies to justify her actions. Deep down, I knew this wasn't just about the affair or the money. It was about trust, something she had completely destroyed. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and honestly devastated. I always believed in honesty, in sticking together through thick and thin, but she'd shown me a different side, the side that lies, cheats, and manipulates. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see it coming. I kept replaying everything, the late nights, the secret texts, the strange money withdrawals, and feeling stupid for not noticing sooner. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what this meant for my future. I loved her, but I couldn't ignore what I'd uncovered. I felt like I'd been living a lie, and now I had to decide whether to fight for us or cut my losses. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, but part of me still hoped she'd come clean, admit everything, and maybe, just maybe, we could start over. But deep down, I knew that was a pipe dream. The damage was done, and I was left with more questions than answers. How could I rebuild trust after all this? Could I ever forgive her? Or was this the end of our story? The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and endless thinking. I couldn't believe how quickly everything had unraveled. One moment, Lisa was my wife, my partner in life, and the next she was someone I barely recognized, someone capable of lying, cheating, and hiding a fortune from me. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was how she kept spinning her stories, trying to make me doubt myself. She called me paranoid, accused me of spying, and insisted that she'd only done what was best for us. I decided I needed to get some legal advice. I reached out to a divorce lawyer just to understand my options. Sitting in that office, I felt like I was in a nightmare. The lawyer explained that Lisa was trying to claim the money as a gift, something she insisted was from her sister, and that she was planning to sue me for half the assets, including the farm sale proceeds. The whole thing was a mess. I knew I had to be prepared for a fight, especially since she'd been hiding assets and lying about the sale. I wanted to get to the bottom of everything, to see if I had any chance of recovering what was mine and holding her accountable. Meanwhile, I started digging into the financials myself. I pulled bank statements, looked at the sale documents, and tried to trace every dollar. That's when I discovered something shocking. She transferred a huge chunk of the sale money into an account she'd kept secret. I found a hidden account under her maiden name, and the balance was enough to make my stomach turn. She'd been hiding it all along, pretending she had no idea where the money was, while secretly hoarding it. I felt like I'd been played for a fool. I confronted her again, this time with the hard proof. I showed her the bank statements, the transfer receipts, the account details. She tried to deny it at first, but then she got angry, screaming, yelling that I was just jealous, that I didn't trust her, that she deserved to have her own money after all she'd been through. Her voice was bitter, her eyes full of venom. She called me a control freak, said I was paranoid about her cheating, and accused me of trying to ruin her. I was furious, but I kept my composure. I told her I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore, that I wanted the truth and I was going to get it. That night I stayed up late, scrolling through all the evidence I'd collected. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I failed to see the cracks in our marriage. I realized I'd been so focused on keeping everything together, on being the good husband, that I overlooked what was happening right under my nose. I felt stupid for trusting her blindly, but more than that, I felt betrayed. I'd given her everything, my love, my trust, our future, and she'd thrown it all away for some guy and a stash of cash. I knew I had a decision to make. I could fight her in court, try to get the money back and expose her lies. Or I could walk away, accept that our marriage was over and start rebuilding my life from scratch. But either way, I was done being naive. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when I knew she'd been lying to my face. The thought of her with that other guy, the way she'd secretly sold the farm, my family's legacy, made my stomach churn. I'd never felt so angry, so betrayed, and honestly so lost. As I sat there, staring at the pile of evidence, I realized that I'd been a fool for trusting her so completely. She'd shown her true colors, and I couldn't ignore the damage anymore. I had to protect what was left of me. I decided to file for divorce, to get a clear legal separation and start the process of reclaiming what was mine. But even as I made that decision, I knew the emotional scars would take time to heal. Trust was shattered, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about how I'd ever recover from this. All I knew was that I was done being manipulated, and I'd fight for what was rightfully mine, no matter how much she tried to spin her lies or manipulate the truth. The legal process was a nightmare. I never thought fighting over a damn farm and hundreds of thousands of dollars would turn into such a mess, but here I was, trying to piece together a life from the ruins of her lies. My lawyer advised me to gather as much evidence as I could: bank statements, sale documents, text messages, anything that proved she had lied or hidden assets. I spent hours every night combing through emails and bank logs, trying to connect all the dots. It was like putting together a puzzle where half the pieces were deliberately missing. One day, I got a call from my lawyer. She told me Lisa was trying to claim that the sale of the farm was a gift from her sister and that I had no right to any of the money. But I had the proof: documents showing the transfer of funds, the sale agreement, and the bank statements where she transferred money into the secret account. I also found a series of texts where she discussed hiding the money, saying she didn't want me to find out. That was the moment I realized how deep her deception went. It wasn't just about infidelity. She'd been planning to take everything from the start. I decided I needed to confront her again, face to face. I called her and told her I had everything, proof that she'd been lying, hiding assets, and cheating on me. Her reaction was bizarre. She tried to gaslight me again, denying everything, saying I was just jealous and paranoid. She claimed she'd only sold the farm because she thought I didn't appreciate her, that she was trying to do something nice for us. I couldn't believe the audacity. I told her I knew about the secret account, her lie about the gift, and her affair. Her face twisted with rage, and she started yelling, accusing me of ruining her life, of trying to control her. That night I sat alone in my house, feeling like I was losing my mind. I kept asking myself how I was supposed to move forward after all this. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, had been lying to my face for who knows how long. And for what? A guy she met at some bar. Money she thought she could hide. I was furious, heartbroken, and exhausted. I didn't sleep much that night. Instead, I thought about all the moments I missed, her sneaking around, the late nights, the strange calls, and how I had ignored the signs because I wanted to believe in us. The thing is, after all the lies and betrayal, I realized I had to make a choice. I could keep fighting for the truth, or I could accept that she was gone and move on. I decided to file for divorce, but not just to end things. I wanted to make sure she didn't get away with stealing our future. I went to court prepared with all my evidence, ready to fight for my rights and the money she'd tried to hide. It felt like a war, but I knew I had to stand my ground. I couldn't let her walk away with what she'd stolen, not without a fight. It's crazy how someone you trusted can turn out to be so different behind closed doors. I used to think Lisa was my partner, my best friend. Now I see her as someone who lied and manipulated her way through our marriage, all for some guy and a stash of cash. The betrayal cuts deep, and I know I'll carry these scars for a long time. But I also realize that I'm stronger than I thought. I'm determined to rebuild my life, even if it means starting over from scratch. I just wish I could understand how she could do this, how she could be so bitchy, so manipulative, so willing to destroy everything we built together. That's what hurts the most, the loss of trust, the realization that the person I loved was just pretending all along. The court date finally arrived, and I went in with everything laid out in front of me: screenshots, bank statements, sale documents, everything. I could feel my heart pounding as I sat there across from Lisa's lawyer, knowing this was the moment to finally get some answers. Lisa was sitting there with that smug, bitchy look she always had when she thought she was winning. She kept trying to play the victim, claiming I was jealous and controlling, that I was just paranoid about her cheating. But I had the evidence, and I was determined to make her see that she couldn't lie her way out of this. When the judge asked her about the sale of the farm, her face faltered for a moment. She tried to brush it off, claiming it was a gift from her sister, that she never sold anything secretly. I stood up and presented the proof: bank transfers, the sale contract, the hidden account details. Her eyes widened just a little, and I saw the flicker of panic. That's when I knew I had her cornered. She started to sputter, trying to come up with excuses, but it was obvious she'd been caught red-handed. The judge looked at her, then at me, and finally made it clear that hiding assets and lying in court was a serious offense. Throughout the proceedings, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief, because I finally had some clarity. She was a liar, a cheat, and a thief. And anger because I'd been so blind for so long, trusting her blindly while she was secretly planning her escape. The judge ordered her to hand over the money from the sale, and she was ordered to pay me half of the assets, including the hidden account she'd kept from me. I felt like I was finally getting some justice, but the emotional toll was heavy. I looked at her sitting there, knowing she'd betrayed everything we built together, and I wondered how I'd ever trust anyone again. After the court, I stayed for a while to talk to my lawyer. She told me that Lisa might try to appeal or drag things out, but I had a solid case. I also decided I needed to get some therapy, because all the betrayal, the lies, the betrayal of trust, it was weighing on me more than I expected. I'd been so focused on fighting for my money that I hadn't really processed how much her betrayal had hurt me emotionally. I realized I'd been suppressing a lot of pain, and I needed to face it if I was ever going to move on. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt a strange sense of closure. The fight wasn't over yet, but at least I had the truth. I knew Lisa's plan to claim the money was a gift was falling apart. The evidence was too strong. I also knew that I'd have to be careful about how I handled the aftermath. She'd been manipulative and sneaky, and I didn't trust her anymore. Not in court, not in life. My focus now was on healing and rebuilding, even if it meant starting over from scratch. I'd lost a lot, but I had learned some harsh lessons about trust, deception, and the importance of protecting what's yours. No matter how much she tried to spin her lies, I saw her for who she really was: a manipulative, selfish woman who betrayed her marriage and her own family for greed and sex. And I was done being her victim. After everything was settled legally, I felt like I was finally able to breathe again, even though the weight of it all still pressed down on me. The court had stripped away her lies, exposed her schemes, and I had at least some peace knowing I wasn't going to be robbed of what was rightfully mine. But peace was hard to come by. The emotional scars ran deep. I spent the first few weeks after the final judgment just trying to piece myself back together, trying to understand how someone I loved could turn into this manipulative, selfish person. Lisa, of course, didn't go quietly. She tried to spin it all in her favor, claiming she was the victim, that I was just jealous and paranoid. She filed for an appeal, trying to delay the process and drag it out even more. But I had the evidence, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I learned that sometimes the best revenge is just walking away from the lies, from the betrayal, from the woman who once meant everything to me but ended up being the person who destroyed my trust. I decided to focus on rebuilding my life. I sold the farm, after the court ordered her To pay me her share, I used that money to buy a small house nearby. It's not much, but it's mine. I got a new job and I've been seeing a therapist to help me process everything. It's hard, no doubt about it. There are days I still wake up angry, days I question if I'll ever truly heal, but I remind myself that I'm stronger now. I've faced the worst betrayal I could imagine and survived it. Looking back, I realize how much I took for granted: trust, loyalty, the idea that my marriage was built on honesty. I learned the hard way that I should have paid more attention to the signs, that I should have protected myself better. But I also learned that even in the face of betrayal, you can come out the other side. It takes time, patience, and a lot of self-reflection, but you can rebuild your life piece by piece. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, I'll say this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the small signs of trouble, because they often turn into something much worse if left unchecked. And if you find out your partner has been lying and cheating, don't be afraid to fight for what's rightfully yours. You deserve honesty and respect, not deception and betrayal. The pain might never fully go away, but you can learn from it and emerge stronger. Finally, I want to say that I hope I never have to go through something like this again. But if I do, I know I'll handle it better, because now I know what to look out for, and I know that the most important thing is to protect myself, both emotionally and financially. Trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to fix. But I've learned that life does go on, and eventually you find your way back to happiness, even if it's a different kind than you imagined. I'll keep moving forward, one day at a time.